From the beginning of the pandemic, which hit Ontario in March of 2020, small businesses across our province have been suffering. For months and months, small business owners, chambers of commerce, business improvement areas, advocacy groups, and of course Ontario Liberals were calling on the government to offer financial supports to small businesses. After 9 months of dithering, in December, when the government finally decided to offer small businesses these supports, we've learned today from the Auditor General that they failed to properly protect taxpayers. The government's lost nearly over $200 million to ineligible grants. Some businesses received more money from the government than they lost during the pandemic, Mr. Speaker. It took 7 weeks for the government to flag the fact that businesses were applying with mailing addresses and bank accounts outside of Ontario. 14,000 ineligible businesses receiving over $210 million from taxpayers, and the government has given up on getting that money back. Why does the government feel that these businesses deserve this $200 million from taxpayers? Why are they giving up on this money?
Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, this coming from a member who's part of a party that literally drove out thousands of small businesses across the province of Ontario. When we talk about losing 300,000 manufacturing jobs, Mr. Speaker, what we forget is that when those factories closed under the previous Liberal government, so too did the small businesses that supported those factories, the workers who came in for lunch, Mr. Speaker, the coffee shops, the individuals who supported all of that business. Why did they leave the province of Ontario? Because of the high hydro policies of the former government, because of the high tax policies of the former government. In Ottawa, they had to leave because they didn't have access to a light rail system that the member was in charge of building, but came in over budget, was late, and then ultimately didn't work, Mr. Speaker. So look, what we did is during a pandemic, we ensured that our small, medium, and large job creators had support that they needed to get through the pandemic. We worked with other levels of government, Mr. Speaker, and the results have been encouraging. We're seeing job creation come back incredibly in the province of Ontario. More work to do, of course, but of course, you know, we will get that job done, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary question.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, $210 million isn't a lot of money to this government that doesn't have a plan to ever balance the budget, but it's a lot of money to Ontarians, Mr. Speaker. Most Ontarians understand that $200 million would have made a big difference to improving school ventilation, to paying school bus drivers more to get our kids to school, to investing in autism services, Mr. Speaker. We've learned today that after months and months of requests and dithering, finally, on December 17th, the Minister of Finance directed officials to develop a program to provide support for small businesses. The Auditor General tells us that the Minister approved the final version of that program on December 19th, and it was presented to Treasury Board on the 21st. This, of course, is the time frame when the Minister was sunning himself in the Caribbean, Mr. Speaker. So did the government lose $200 million because they delayed their decision and had to rush? Or did they lose $200 million because the Finance Minister was on the beach when he was making these decisions?
Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, what do you say? Can you imagine a Liberal member of Parliament, provincial Parliament, who's in charge of building a light rail system in Ottawa that came in over budget, that was late, and then still doesn't work, Mr. Speaker, of a party that spent so much money and has nothing to show for it, that made us the most indebted sub-sovereign government in the world. Ontarians have more debt than any other people in the world.
Stop the clock. Member for York Centre will come to order. Restart the clock. Government House Leader will conclude his answer.
So, Mr. Speaker, look, I know the member opposite. He probably regretted reading that question the moment he started it, Mr. Speaker, because when it comes to good, strong fiscal government that people can rely on, it is always a progressive Conservative government that does that. It is always a progressive Conservative government that makes the investments needed to bring our economy and move the people of Ontario forward.